And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Go ahead and say it, Ed. Go Tigers!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
F it. Jamar's down there somewhere.
The New Orleans Saints select Marcus Davenport.
No!
Splash Brothers. Yeah.
It's playoff. Keep going, Brace.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Welcome to Chasing the Trophy Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Sanders, coming at you for the Week 8 Waiver Wire episode. Yes, I can't believe it. We are already at Week 8. Sorry about last week, guys. Had a bye week. We'll just say that. But anyway, hopefully, Clay got some of the graphics up, and then hopefully some of that helped y'all out. Some of the material, I tried to get it out while I could. Just crazy times at work. But anyway, yep, so we're here week 8 waiver wire. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and try to roll through this, make this one fairly quick for y'all. Hopefully Clay will get that graphic out sooner rather than later. And that way, some of these pickups will be there for y'all when waivers clear and you can pick them up, or you can set a waiver wire claim for them. But first, we're going to jump right on into a word of prayer. And we're still praying for Nora K. Just, Lord, please be with her as she's going through this immunization process, and here recently just getting her routine lab work and testing and everything done. Just please keep your hand on her and a hedge of protection around her and her family as she's still recovering, going through this process, Lord, as you've done mighty things in her life already, and they surely are testifying to that. And we just appreciate what you've done for her, and just please be with Nora K and the Merediths as they continue to go through this, Lord. Just please be with Crew Tidwell and his family as he continues to have treatment and go through the same, similar process, Lord, as he's fighting this battle. Be with him and his family as they're going through all this, and then be with Mama T and the Nord family, and then all of Mama T's family as this stage of life that she's in, Lord. Just be with them, comfort them, give them peace, and just be with her as she continues to serve and live for you, Lord. And just be with the victims and the relief workers of all the hurricane devastation and all the states, Lord, from Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. Just be with those people and just give them comfort and strength, and let them turn to you in this time of need, Lord. And just be with the workers as well, that they're going, and let them be serving in your name, and let the people know that they're coming in your name, Lord, and just to help give them comfort in that you're there for them. And just thank you for everything you continue to do for us. Thank you for this wonderful game. Give us the opportunity to talk about, and just the ability to, because without you, none of this is possible. And just let us continue to be a light and serve and lead, guide, and direct in your name, and just bring people closer to you, Lord. And it's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, guys. So Week 8 waivers. Sponsors, thank you, Big Reed BBQ, Mimi's Children's Boutique, Crown Detailing. Crown Detailing is our title sponsor for this episode. They offer mobile car detailing services, conveniently servicing your vehicle at your home or workplace. They provide various services for cars, boats, campers, and RVs, serving Ruston and surrounding areas. Reserve your spot today by contacting them at 318-474-0859, or find them on Facebook by searching Crown Detailing. Thank you, Crown. We appreciate y'all supporting us, and y'all go out there and support them. You got to get your ride cleaned up for, I think, homecomings are going on, proms, your kids' vehicle, the big game, LSU game, Tech game, ULM game, Grambling game. Go get your vehicles cleaned up and ready to show off, and give Crowd Detailing a holler. And so jumping right on into news and injuries, man, there is a fair amount to roll through with this, so I'm going to do it quick as I can. Jonathan Taylor out the last couple weeks with that high ankle sprain, and Monday, head coach Shane Steichen said he's optimistic that Taylor will resume practicing this week with the divisional matchup. They're playing the Texans this week. Hopefully he can come back. We'll see. He says optimistic, doesn't mean to say he's coming back. So, Jonathan Taylor, still hadn't come back from the high ankle sprain that he said he wasn't probably going to miss a week with, and he's been out 2 weeks. So George Kittle came out of this past weekend's game with a sprained foot in his day-to-day. Honestly, the 49ers just took a beating, man. If you haven't heard or been Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL and MCL. He is out for the season. Deebo Samuel was hospitalized with pneumonia and fluid on his lungs and just craziness. So like they're down their two top receivers, and then now George Kittle, one of their other top pass catchers, is out with a foot sprain day to day. I mean, it hit them all at once, guys. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But yep, so the 49ers got several guys down. Nico Collins still on IR. No news from him. DK Metcalf carted off the field with a knee injury, and they confirmed on Monday that it ends up being just a minor MCL sprain. I know in my experience, just from MCL sprains in the past, typically, like as far as my experience, as far as fancy news and injuries with the NFL, that is, typically it's like 2 weeks, a week or two. So maybe he sits out this week. It's been a couple weeks. He gets in a late practice next week. I would not count on having him against Buffalo this week. But that's typically the, timeline. So we're just a couple weeks. Could have been a lot worse news for sure. Could have had a situation like Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk where he tore everything in his knee. Thank goodness he didn't. We just talked about Deebo Samuel. Like I said, hospitalized with pneumonia and fluid on his lungs. And anyway, he was discharged on Tuesday. So he just got out the hospital on Tuesday. We'll see if he's able to recover or not quick enough to get in there this weekend. Could be up in the air because you definitely don't want to have a relapse of that. Christian McCaffrey news. He is unlikely to practice this week, but they're hopeful that he will be able to return after the Week 9 bye for the November 10th game. So there you go. Looking like might not be back to Week 9. So if he does come back in Week 9, after Week 9, he essentially missed half the season. It's crazy, man. But it just, just nuts. So if you're a Christian McCaffrey owner, and you've been hanging on to him, you just keep hanging. But, I mean, you still got a couple more weeks, it sounds like. So, Mike Evans goes down. Another offense goes just completely obliterated with injuries. Mike Evans went down with a hamstring injury, which he's had many of in his career, on Monday night. Goes down with a hamstring injury, and Todd Bowles has confirmed Tuesday that he will remain out through the Week 11 bye. So, Mike Evans will not be back until Week 12 and had a moderate right hamstring injury, which is like, that's pretty bad. So they're not going to put him on IR because they don't think it'll make him miss 4 games, but he will miss 3 games. So pretty big deal there for Mike Evans with that hamstring injury. It's going to be out till at least Week 12. And then we got Jaden Daniels. This past week, got hit and ended up getting hurt and had a rib injury and is considered week to week. They're hopeful that he'll be able to play Sunday. We will see. He was week to week after that. He missed last week, and he ended up, they haven't said if it's like rib fractures or what, but either way, Marcus Mariota's starting in his place. But they're hoping that he can play this weekend. But I keep an eye on Jay Daniels, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Aaron Jones, who's been kind of iffy here and there with hamstring injury, he was limited Monday. He will be fine. Zay Flowers comes out of his game Monday night with a questionable tag, but there's no real update on what is going on with his injury. See if I can find some more information for y'all on that. Yeah, no, nothing on Save Flowers. That's right. No, nothing. Sorry, guys. Chris Olave ended up missing the game last week with being in the concussion, and it looks like that he's still in the concussion protocol as of Monday. So we will see. No other update. He's still got to get full clearance before he's going to be able to come back. Puka Nacua had his practice window open. So those of you who've been waiting for Nacua to come back, he had his practice window open, and on Tuesday, so yes, of this week, and he will receive the green light to resume practicing, and he's missed the last 5 games, so it might take him a week to get back up to speed. The Rams play on Thursday night this week, so highly unlikely Nacua gets activated before that game, but I bet it's very likely he gets activated for next week. So good news there. Travis Etienne ended up getting ruled out with that hamstring injury last week. No new updates there. Keep an eye on that, but they were labeling him week to week after that hamstring injury, and he missed last week. So we will see when they get an update out for that later on this week. Dallas Goedert ended up being ruled out last week with a hamstring injury. No new news on that as that goes, but he was out. Now, Chris Godwin for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, God bless him, was having a phenomenal season. Wide receiver 2 on the year so far, dislocated his ankle during the game Monday night and had surgery, and they're saying Todd Bowles is saying he's probably out for the year. Complete wipes out. A lot of people were pretty much surviving and hanging on with his point scoring there, really carrying people. And but yeah, so definitely he's going to end up going on the IR. We'll see if he comes back or not. I mean, you could hold out hope, but at this point, Chris Godwin's pretty much droppable. TJ Hawkinson with his knee injury has been limited. He was limited last week. Once he came back, he was limited again Monday. We'll keep an eye on that. They play the Rams on Thursday night. I think it's going to be iffy if he gets activated for Thursday night, but I'd keep an eye on Hawkinson. But he is almost back, guys, which would be another big boost for that Minnesota offense. It's looking pretty good. Brandon Ayuk, like we said earlier, MCL, ACL sprain, done for the year. Jacoby Myers, really, man, he has been out since week 5. He had played week 5, and then since week 5, he has been out. No update on this. He was inactive for the game last week with this ankle injury. I guess it was a high ankle sprain. They didn't really say, but he was out. No new news, but I'd keep an eye on it because he is the number 1 wide receiver in that offense when he comes back. Now, there was news that his quarterback, Aiden O'Connell, tore a ligament in his thumb, had surgery, and he's going to miss like 4 to 8 weeks or something like that. So could be seeing Gardner Minshew back under center there for Las Vegas. That could be good news for Jacoby Myers because he tends to lock in on one wide receiver, and that could be Jacoby Myers in that situation. So keep an eye on him, and if he gets dropped, pick him up, stash him on your bench, especially if you might need wide receiver help in the week 14 and 15 buys. I think it's 14, 15, maybe it's 12 and 14. There's some weeks, I know one of them's 14, where there's 6 teams on bye later on. So definitely going to need help later on in the season there. Juwan Jennings missed last week with a hip injury. And boy, he missed a game where he'd probably been out for the season because they lost, several people last week, but they're hoping to get him back this week. They have not had an update this week at this point. So Juwan Jennings looks to be probably the number 1 wide receiver there while Debo's out for sure, and definitely the number 1 pass catching option in that offense, which we've seen him succeed in already this year. And then another little tidbit of news, DeAndre Hopkins comes out breaking kind of here right now, just released this morning. The Tennessee Titans are finalizing a trade to send DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs. They're going to end up sending him to the Chiefs for a 5th-round pick, and that could become a 4th rounder, I'm sure, depending on how much he plays and how much he performs. But yeah, so DeAndre Hopkins going to the Chiefs. I had a feeling they might try trading for somebody, but I wasn't sure who. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised it was Hopkins because he's 32. He's been banged up a lot the last couple of years. They've already got 2 wide receivers that are pretty much done for the year. You wouldn't think they want to add any more, but either way, Chiefs trade for DeAndre Hopkins. So we'll see how that goes. And I really don't know how I feel about picking him up because he's already having some lower leg issues right now. Jonathan Brooks back at practice. He was ruled out last week. Keep an eye on that. He might be getting close to return. And let's see, anything else really relevant? Tajay Spears. He was ruled out with a hamstring injury, said he could be back this week. Just a little tidbit, if you missed the last week, Rashid Shaheed got put on the season-ending IR with a sorry, I was scrolling through. Season-ending IR with a knee surgery to repair meniscus. Must have been a bad meniscus repair for it to be season-ending. And let's see, Juju Smith-Schuster was out last week, and that's relevant because that's why they signed DeAndre Hopkins, because he had a hamstring injury, played, ended up re-aggravating it, and they don't know when he's going to come back yet. So another little news, Tua is coming back, and kind of crazy to think, but he will practice Wednesday, and they said he is likely to play this weekend. So if you need quarterback help and you're in a bind, Tua is coming back, guys. So you can look for him out there on your waiver wire and pick him up if you need help at the quarterback position. And that's pretty much all the news and injuries so far. Also last week, which I wasn't on, but Devontae Adams got traded to the Jets, and they still lost. So in a span of 2 weeks, Devontae Adams has lost to the Steelers twice. That's been on a graphic pretty much everywhere, pretty crazy. But let's jump right on into our waiver wire week 8 quarterbacks. Okay, number 1 for me is going to be Caleb Williams. Great matchups coming up. Weapons galore. Really, he should be healthy. Everybody should be fairly healthy in this offense coming off a bye. If they continue to let him just throw the ball around the yard, you really expect great fantasy points. We'll see. I don't know if that's going to turn into winning for them, but he is producing some solid fantasy points while he's doing that. But they got Washington, Arizona, and New England coming up. Solid matchups for the next 3 weeks for Caleb Williams with all those weapons, especially. Next would probably be Tua. Honestly, I did not originally put him on this list because they released that information about him coming back to practice before I had written this podcast, but he's got some solid matchups coming up. If he plays this week, he's got Arizona at home. Then he's at Buffalo, whose pass defense is not quite what it once was. Then he's got the Rams. Then he's got Las Vegas. Then he's got New England. Then Green Bay and Jets. So you got a stretch of about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks with Tua where it's solid, good matchups. And, I mean, his first game of the year, 23 for 37, 338, and a touchdown, 1 rush for 11. I doubt he rushes anymore, just saying. But that led to 28.62 fantasy points and 6 point per touchdown league. And we've seen Tua be a top 10 quarterback before. So if you're in a bind, Tua is he's only owned in 36% of leagues. So decent chance he's out there. I like him for the next several weeks, but be prepared, because all it takes when he's had as many concussions as he takes one big hit, he's probably down and out for a while. So it's a kind of a stick, just because we've seen him produce, but it's like high risk that he gets hit in a game and then he goes down again. So number 2, Sam Darnold, or number 3, whatever, because I originally didn't have Tua, so I slotted him in there. But then Sam Darnold, owned in 45% leagues at the Rams and on Thursday night. So if you're getting this and you're in a, pick him up. Honestly, he's somebody I would start on Thursday night. He has been a solid producer all year, pretty much, except for about 1 game. And the Rams' defense is 22nd against quarterbacks so far. And if he gets Hawkinson back, that's even a bigger plus. Even if you don't get him back this week, he's getting him back next week probably for sure. And Sam Darnold has already passed his bye. So another solid guy to pick up off the waiver wire if you need help. Number 3 is Geno Smith. I mean, really been Mr. Consistent this year. Even his low games, he's still been better than most of the league. quarterbacks who've had bad games. Owned in 54.3% leagues. QB7 so far this year. Geno Smith. Tough matchup this week against Buffalo at home, but Geno has been Mr. Consistent. I mean, you pick him up, even in tough matchups, he's getting you 15, 18 points, which is more than Patrick Mahomes in most games. So, crazy to say, but yeah, Geno at number 3 or number 4. Jared Goff at number 5. 48% owned. Another really consistent quarterback so far this year. He's QB9 on the year. Honestly, the only reason he's not higher is because he doesn't rush at all. But man, has he been efficient. I think somebody said over his last 3 games, he's his completion percentage is like 85%, which, I mean, it helps because he had that one game he was 18 for 18. But still, QB9 on the year. He's at home against Tennessee, whose secondary had their top 2 corners, did not play last week. I don't know the situation for them this week, but he also will probably lose Jamison Williams for the next 2 weeks for a suspension, used performance-enhancing substances. Who knows what that means or what it is, because nobody knows what they are anymore. But yeah, Jameson will be out, but what that might do, it might help him and Sam Laporta get back on the same page, which could boost this offense even more going forward. So Jared Goff, love him for the rest of the season. He's past his bye week. Then we got Russell Wilson sneaking on in here, taking over for the very successful Justin Fields, but they brought Russell Wilson in to be the quarterback apparently, and so some of the announcers were saying that Mike Tomlin is pretty much using this as a dress rehearsal for Russell Wilson because he has seen what Justin Fields can do and will do on the field for them. And so now he's seeing what Russell Wilson can do, and then he's going to make his decision going forward. Now, Russell Wilson put up some good fantasy points this past week to the tune of, let me get this pulled. I should have had him right there. But, yeah, so Russell Wilson this past week put up some solid fantasy production. 16 of 29 for 264, 2 touchdowns, 3 rushes and 3 yards and touchdown, 28 fantasy points. So not the best completion percentage, but he was going up against the Jets, who have probably one of the best secondaries in the NFL. So Russell Wilson looked good. He's going to continue to start. He's got the Giants at home this week. So solid matchup on Sunday night. I mean, a solid matchup on Sunday for Russell Wilson. Giants at Pittsburgh, and he looks like he has the opportunity to put up some more points. And then last but certainly not least, Mr. Drake May just come out the gates firing, man. 13.3% of fantasy leagues, and he has the only reason he is not higher on the schedule because of what he's been doing. He has been so good. But the only reason he is not higher is because he has a gauntlet of a schedule, guys. Like, for his next several games, he has the Jets, Titans, who don't have their corners Titans then, but they probably will have them back by this game. But he's got the Jets this week, Titans, Chicago for the next 3 games. All 3 of those are like the top 3 secondaries in the NFL. And he already does not have a great pass-catching core there in New England. So he's able to run the ball a fair amount, which will, I think, buoy his production, but could be tough sledding for him, especially a young quarterback going up against some of these better defenses. They might have some more complicated coverages for him to be able to decipher. But, I mean, I still think he can move the ball, but he might be more prone to turnovers. So it's kind of a catch-22. But after that, he's got his bye, and he's got good matchups after his bye. So he's got to get through these to go to his bye. Then he's going to have a lot of good. So if you pick him up, maybe stash him. Don't expect a lot. But, I mean, he could end up just with his rushing ability being able to produce against these guys also. So he's been very impressive through his first couple weeks. I mean, just his first couple starting, 20 for 33 for 243 and 3 touchdowns, and then 2 interceptions, but a rush and 5 yards, and then 5 rushes for 38 yards, then 26 for 37 last week at Jacksonville, 276 for 2 touchdowns, 3 carries for 18 yards. So, I mean, been solid. Keep an eye on Drake May. I like him. He's definitely a good stash if you need somebody in those bye weeks after his bye week. Then we're going to jump right on to running backs, which was tough this week. Not really a lot of solid running back options this week on the waiver wire. None that are like going to come in and start or anything for you. There's several handcuffs that, you can pick up, but Number one for me, still Ray Davis. Owned in 14.7% fantasy leagues this past week. Sorry, guys. This past week, only 5 carries, but 41 yards and a touchdown. And then he still had another catch for 1 target, 1 catch for 6 yards. And then he outproduced all the other Bills running backs, including James Cook. He got a goal line carry. James Cook got a goal line carry. They both punched in for a touchdown, but he only had a 24% snap count, which they said he was banged up coming into the game. So if he was banged up and he comes out, puts up 5 for 41, a touchdown, and then another catch, man, I'm just like watching him play and the talent and the efficiency that he has when he runs. You know, Buffalo sees it. Josh Allen felt comfortable throwing the ball even down the field week before last. Threw him a deep ball down the field for like 30 yards, and he goes up and catches it. Just really freak athlete, great football player. So I bet on his talent to bust through eventually, and at least it becomes a timeshare with James Cook again. This week it's at Seattle, so it's a pretty good matchup. And then there's no buys this week, so you don't have to worry about that, but he still has his buy coming up. But I think he is a strong stash/handcuff if James Cook gets hurt, but also if he gets this to a 50-50 timeshare, he could be an easy flex play going down the stretch. And then number 2 is Tyrone Tracy, owned in 47.3% of leagues, busted on the scene with Devin Singletary being out. Well, Devin Singletary's back, and Tyrone Tracy still had a 67% snap count. So heavily involved in the offense still, even with Singletary back. The Giants, the problem is the Giants are missing one of their best offensive, maybe one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL, Andrew Thomas, who is their key on their offensive line. And without him, this Giants offense has just struggled tremendously. Tracy and Neighbors are probably the best. Tracy behind Neighbors is probably the most explosive playmaker on his team. And they're going to continue to get him the ball. But until Andrew Thomas gets back, it's going to be tough sledding for anybody on this offense because Daniel Jones doesn't have time to throw it. The running backs don't have time to make a break, and they're not getting any open holes. So tough sledding, but I think it's going to get better. Tyrone Tracy, somebody I'll be watching down the stretch that could take over this role or might have already taken over this role from Devin Singletary in this offense. So like him a lot. Number 3 is Jaylen Warren. Finally back from that hamstring injury he was hampered with most of the year. Owned in 45% of fantasy leagues, played 51% of the snaps on Monday night with Russell Wilson under center. Harris had a good night, went over 100 yards for Harris, but Jaylen Warren still looked very good, very efficient. He was in there a lot. Wilson will check the ball down to his running back a little bit more, it seems like, than Justin Fields will. And honestly, Warren, he looked good, and he seems to be back. So you might can find Warren on the waiver wire and expect the production that everybody was expecting out of him at the beginning of the year when everybody thought Wilson was going to start and when everybody thought it was going to be a 60-40 split between Warren and Harris. So if he's out there, you might want to go pick him up, stash him, see what happens. Or if you're in a bind, he might be worth playing at the flex this week and possibly going forward because he's very talented, very efficient runner. He does not need but 10 to 12 touches, and he can be an easy flex play for you. So go out there, check out, see if Jaylen Warren's available. This week, he's got a pretty good matchup against the Giants. It's kind of mediocre, but they're playing on Monday night, but 17th in the league against the running back. So decent chance he has a solid game. So Jaylen Warren. Number 4 is Alexander Madison. Owned in 42.5% of leagues, and really it's like, Alexander Madison, what are you talking about, man? Half people don't even know where he's playing. He's in Las Vegas, took over for Zamir White this past week, 23 carries, 92 yards, 3 catches for 31 yards. Little to be known, Alexander Madison is RB21 on the season so far, and that is an RB2 on the season, guys. Alexander Madison out there only owned in 42% leagues. Now, he's got a lot of touchdowns. He's got 3, and that's really that, and some of the catches has been buoying his production. But there's no reason to think that's going to stop because he's been productive with what they've given him. Now, he ain't been a world beater as far as, efficiency and production, but he's been better than anybody else they got in that backfield. This week, though, he's got Kansas City, the number 1 run defense in the NFL. They've pretty much shut down every running back they faced all year. Chris Jones is a monster on that defensive line, and Alexander Madison has got some tough sledding. I would not expect much this week. But after that, he's got Cincinnati, and then he's got a bye. But Cincinnati, before that bye, he's got a good chance. Then he gets healthy, but he gets his bye over with before that gauntlet of buys where there's 16 buys are later on in the season. So he's the primary back there. He's getting the touches and the goal line work. Alexander Madison, a solid bench piece and bye week and flex fill in if you need help. Alexander Madison would be a great one. And then last but not least for the running backs, Jonathan Brooks owned in 59.2% of fantasy leagues. I mean, dude, people are drafting this guy in the 5th and 6th round, which is crazy to me. Like, I thought it was crazy to begin with. And I don't think I drafted him anywhere. If I did, I got him at a value and I put him in the IR spot. But, yeah. And he still hadn't played halfway through the season. I guarantee you those people drafted him did not think he was going to do that. But he's back at practice, and he's going to give it another go. They're going to give him another week, and we will see. He could come back this weekend because he's been practicing. I would stash him. I would probably not play him on his first game back, and I would see how they work him into the game plan, how he looks. Hubbard has been very good, very efficient. But if they end up wanting to change over to Jonathan Brooks, what we've seen Hubbard do, Jonathan Brooks can do all of that and probably more. So that means that there is a lot to be had in this offense, and Jonathan Brooks has the ability to do it. He's somebody I'd stash and I'd be watching, especially if you need running back help down the stretch. And then that's going to close out our running backs, going right on into our wide receivers, which there are many, and I'm going to try to go quickly through them. First off, number one for me is going to be Juwan Jennings. I mean, this is deja vu. Guys, we've seen, Deebo Samuel go down. We picked up Jennings. We thought it was going to be the Ayuk show, and sure enough, Jennings goes off for 50-something fantasy points. I could read you stat line, but I can't remember it, but I'm not going to pull it up. But anyway, Juwan Jennings, Ayuk is out. Deebo Samuel's banged up again, who gets banged up all the time. Dude, Juwan Jennings might be a top 20 wide receiver rest of season now with this injury. The only thing is Ricky Pearsall's back, who I'm going to talk about next. But anyway, with Ayuk done for the season, no CMC for at least a couple more weeks, Juwan Jennings is in for a major part of this great 49ers offense. He needs to be the number one waiver wire ad everywhere. I got him in a couple leagues. I dropped him. I picked him up in all the leagues I had him in, and then I dropped him because he was pretty much irrelevant. But that's kind of one of those things where you hang on to players that are in relevant offenses if you're not playing them. And then number two for me is Ricky Pearsall, because Ricky Pearsall coming out of college and going to the combine and the NFL draft. Clear my throat. Ricky Pearsall was Deebo Samuel 2.0 coming into this team. And people don't realize how athletic, how freak of an athlete he is. Now, unfortunately, he got shot in the chest before the season started, trying to thwart it was either robbing or a shooting, and ended up wrestling the gun away, shot the other guy, and got shot in the process. I mean, straight up Superman stuff, And anyway, he's back after getting shot in the chest only 8 weeks later. He's back on the NFL field. He's still going to be green. He's rusty. He missed all that time. But I guarantee you he's been out there, he's been watching, he's been training, he's been studying. He's going to be more ready. It's going to take him a little time, but with his pedigree, his athleticism, I mean, he could factor in immediately, and Jennings could factor in immediately. With Samuel and Ayuk out, that's the only thing that I think could hold Jennings' real ceiling down is Pearsall being more involved. But Pearsall might be somebody you want because he's going to have some of that Deebo role where he's going to get some handoffs. He's going to get some screen passes. He's an athlete. Like I said, Deebo 2.0 is what they were calling a lot of them. And even if he's only 80% of a Deebo, like, dude, I want in on that. And I think it might take him a couple games to be more effective than what we think, but definitely Ricky Pearsall is somebody I'd be looking to add and stash. Number three is Romeo Doubs. He's a more immediate impact guy. Owned in 37% fantasy leagues. He had 10 targets, 8 catches for 94 yards. He's had back-to-back good fantasy weeks. He had 2 touchdowns the week before. Honestly, he got suspended from what I heard about making a big fuss about not being involved more in the offense. And, you know what they say, squeaky wheel gets the grease, and he's getting the grease right now in this offense. He looks like the clear number one wide receiver as far as other than Jaden Reed, who's kind of more of a Deebo Samuel type wide receiver. But, I mean, if you want to use a reference for 49ers, Jaden Reed's Deebo Samuel and Romeo Doubs is Brandon Ayuk. And he looks pretty good so far. And he's available out there. It's just they have so many pass catchers in this on this team, and that's why he's not higher on this list. You just don't know if it's going to be his week or not, but more than likely, it seems like he's more than likely the one that's going to be his week every week. So Romeo Doubs out there in 37% of fantasy leagues. Then we go to number 4. Combination of guys that I think both could be productive, but I don't know which one. I don't know how it's going to go, so that's why I put them on here together. But the Tampa Bay wide receivers, Jalen McMillan, Sterling Shepard, both owned in less than 2% of fantasy leagues, with Chris Godwin going down for the season with a season-ending ankle injury, and then Mike Evans not going on IR, but going to be out for at least the next 3 weeks. I mean, both of these guys could be fantasy relevant. I don't know which one more. They were using Sterling Shepard more with Evans and Godwin out there, but I think that's because he's a better blocker than Jalen McMillan is, because he's a rookie. But I think both of these guys could be, I mean, there's going to be lots of targets to go around. I think Jalen McMillan's going to try to assume the Mike Evans role, and I think Sterling Shepard could assume the Chris Godwin role. So both of them could be productive. Who knows which one's going to be more productive, but that's why I put them both on this list. I don't think it's a terrible idea to take a lottery ticket on either one. Would I start them right away? No, unless you're in a bind, because I don't know who's going to be the best. I think Sterling Shepard could be the most effective immediately, but I think with Jalen McMillan's talents and pedigree, especially everything we've heard about him coming out of college and he beat out for the wide receiver 3 job coming out of camp, so they like him. I think he could end up being the most productive in the long run. So that's just that. And then also Trey Palmer's still on this team, who they did like, but McMillan beat out Trey Palmer for that wide receiver 3 job. I do not think he gets first crack at any of these opportunities, but if McMillan and Shepard don't capitalize, Trey Palmer could be in there sooner rather than later. Number 5 is going to be Cedric Tillman for me, owned in 0.3% of leagues, and he might be more of a long-term ad than the other two of Tampa Bay guys, because Cedric Tillman went 12 targets, 8 catches for 81 yards this past week, and that was the first week after Amari Cooper is out. And it's starting to look like that Cedric Tillman could be the Amari Cooper replacement in this offense, where we thought it could be Jerry Jeudy, it could be Elijah Moore, and then it ends up being Cedric Tillman, who's it's his second year, but really a highly talented rookie coming out of college that's athletic freak. And there's been several analysts and beat writers who said he is he's like DK Metcalf built, and athleticism, kind of a raw talent. But once he kind of hones his skills in, I mean, if we're talking about DK Metcalf, and the thing is, something I didn't talk about, news and injury. Sorry, guys. Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles this past week, and then Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the backup quarterback, comes in and then injures his thumb, which could be a severe injury. They're not sure if he's going to have surgery or not. So that leaves Jameis Winston as the quarterback for the Browns, which is a deep throwing machine. And Cedric Tillman's a guy that's going to go down there and get it, and he's great at contested catches. So this could be a match made in heaven right here with Jameis Winston throwing the ball to Cedric Tillman. So I'm taking a stab on him in several leagues. I don't know if he's going to be most productive. I don't need a ton of wide receiver help. So that's why I'm going to see where it goes. But if he comes out and ends up being Brian Thomas Jr. For the second half of the season, this could be big. So I like Cedric Tillman a lot. Number 6, Rashad Bateman, owned 7.6% of leagues. Honestly, this is hard because he went 4 for this past Monday, 4 targets, 4 catches for 121 and a touchdown. He's wide receiver 23 on the year, guys. He's a wide receiver 2 as far as fantasy points. And I got to give him some kind of acknowledgement for being at that point and being only owned in 7.6% leagues. But his production's really hard to predict because he's so low volume. It's hard to be consistent, but OBJ kind of did it last year for him. But he only has more than 4 targets twice all year. and he only has double-digit target. He doesn't have any double-digit targets. And then he has no more than 4 catches all year in any game. So he's only had more than 4 targets twice, and I think one was 5 and one was like 7. Okay. And then he's only caught 4 balls or less each game every year, like at the most. But he's got 3 touchdowns. He's averaging 13 yards per target and 19 yards per catch. So he is like the guy when they run play action. Lamar Jackson's looking for Rashad Bateman down there somewhere. And he's really boom or bust, but if you're in bye weeks, if you're needing a flex help, Rashad Bateman, you could probably do worse than picking him up, throwing him in your lineup, because if he goes and booms like he did this past week, he win your week for you out of nowhere. I had a buddy of mine that picked him up, started him. He didn't win, but I was like, man, why did you come up with that? He was like, he looked like he was boom or bust, so he picked him up. I was like, that's pretty legit, because he boomed. He still lost, but still. But yeah, Rashad Bateman might be somebody if you're in a bind, could help you out. Jalen Tolbert's number 7. Really could have been higher on this list, but Brandon Cooks is getting closer and closer to coming back. He's not coming back yet because I think he's still got 1 or 2 more weeks on IR, but they're coming off a bye. Everybody hopefully will be a little bit more healthy on this offense, Dallas offense. And then I would think they've probably got some of their offensive woes worked out over the bye, fixed some things. And I hope they include to use Tolbert more. I don't know, but it could be more of the CeeDee Lamb show. Either way, I think you could do worse than picking up the number 2 wide receiver in this Dallas offense, Jalen Tolbert. He's made some great plays, and we've seen him outproduce CeeDee Lamb a couple times this year, so we know he can produce. So he might deserve to be even higher on this list. I just don't know where they're going or how this offense is going to look coming out the bye, but definitely somebody might be worth targeting. And then last but certainly not least, Mario Douglas. I had him high on this list last week, and then I even had him on there the week before. Owned in 39.8% of fantasy leagues. Had a really rough week last week against Jacksonville. It really stunk because it was a good matchup for him, but he got sick before the game, ended up missing the entire second half, and had to require IV fluids and nausea medication. So that tells you probably some kind of stomach virus or something. Unfortunate for him, but he only played 1 half. Didn't really have a great stat line, but with Drake, as well as Drake May has looked under center, this really puts Demario Douglas on the map because he's got a solid, competent quarterback, and he is a good slot possession type wide receiver. And I think he could be very productive down the stretch, and I think people are going to be out on him because of this bad week he just had, but I think he's somebody you need to be looking for, maybe stashing. If you need a bind, just keep an eye. If you got a wide receiver, maybe you're looking to replace Chris Godwin. He could be somebody that give you more constant production. Maybe not a high ceiling like some of these other guys, but definitely more constant, 10 to 12 points weekly for you. And then you throw a touchdown in there, then he's, easy wide receiver too. So Demario Douglas there. That's going to end our wide receivers. And let's jump right on into our tight ends. Pretty much just scrap everything you knew about tight end all season. Just throw it out the window. And let's just start over. And we're going to start over with number 1, Cade Otton, owned in 42.3% of fantasy leagues, has worked himself up to tight end 10 so far on the season now. But there's a lot that goes into this. For one, last week, 10 targets, 8 catches for 100 yards. Best stat line of his career by far. And I think we're going to see a big boost in his production because, like I was talking about earlier, Chris Godwin went down, season-ending ankle surgery. Evans is going to be out for the next several weeks. And I think Baker showed his confidence and comfort in Cade Otton last week with 10 targets, 8 catches for 100 yards. And it's obvious they're getting a more stable chemistry and connection. And I think he could be somebody very productive down the stretch. So if you need tight end help, Cade Otton, man, it could be rest of season for sure for you. And then number 2, also Hunter Henry. Both these guys could be flip-flopped to 1 or 2. Hunter Henry coming in 27.4% fantasy owned. We've seen some big weeks out of Hunter Henry, but not consistent. Well, the last 2 weeks have been pretty consistent. This past week, 9 targets, 8 catches for 92 yards. Now Hunter Henry's tight end 6. And you know what's been the same, or the constant factor for the last 2 weeks for Hunter Henry being productive? Drake May is under center. And it looks like Drake May and Hunter Henry have a great connection. And they've got several tough matchups coming up the next couple weeks. But with their lack of standout wide receivers on this team, I think Hunter Henry could emerge as a main pass catcher for this offense. So Hunter Henry comes in at number 2. Number 3, Cole Kmet. Don't forget about him. Guy owned in 57.8% fantasy leagues. Now, he's a little bit more erratic, but he just had a bye week, and he's still tight end 4, guys. Like, he had a whole week off at this crazy tight end position, and he's still tight end 4. He was tight end 1 going into that. And I think if they continue to let Williams throw like he has been, I think some of that volume is going to go to Cole Kmet. The week before his bye, he had 2 touchdown catches, so he's looking for him in the red zone. So definitely somebody to take a flyer on if you need help at the tight end position. And he's definitely somebody that is by far athletic enough to take advantage of mismatches in the passing game. And if Williams starts to look his way for that, I mean, Cole Kmet, he's a really freak athlete type tight end. I mean, Sam Laporta, Mark Andrews type. And he's a little bit robust, but I think if he booms, he's one that could win your week. So Cole Kmet's number 3, and then last but certainly not least, tight end Zach Ertz. Mr. Consistency. He's pretty much done this stat line almost all year, minus the touchdown, or you had a touchdown, but he's only 55% of fantasy leagues. But this past week, 5 targets, 4 catches for 40 yards and touchdown. He's pretty much done that all year with or without a touchdown. So you're looking at about 8 to 10 points every week out of Zach Ertz. He's tight end 9 on the season. With Daniels going down, Marcus Mariota in there, we've seen him use his tight ends at almost all the places he's played at. So, and when Daniels comes back, he was throwing the ball to Zach Ertz. So he's been involved either way in this offense. He's had a minimum of 5 targets every game, and he finally gets the end zone. This is his first touchdown all year, but still, he keeps being involved. He keeps you in the work. Now, this week, Chicago secondary is very good, so might lock up their wide receivers, but that could help Ertz out, and they could be looking to go to Ertz. They could be looking to go to Ertz to move the ball through the air. So could be somebody to look at to stream this week if you need help. And then that's going to end our tight end segment or section. And then I'm going to give you some streaming defenses this week. It's not really a bad week. There's several pretty solid options. Kansas City owning 32% of fantasy leagues at Las Vegas. They just went back to Gardner Minshew. They've been starting Aiden O'Connell, so a quarterback change. And then Kansas City has the best run defense in the NFL, and then Las Vegas does not have a great wide receiver core, especially if Jacoby Myers ends up being out. All they have is Brock Bowers pretty much. So Kansas City's solid option at Las Vegas. Then the Los Angeles Chargers owned in 30.8% fantasy leagues going up against the New Orleans Saints. I hate to say it, but the Saints are somebody to target for defenses right now. They have looked pretty rough on offense. I'll be honest, Spencer Rattler, I don't know. I think he's still a little green. I think you need to give him some more time. But Jake Haener looked pretty solid in his one series he got that he scored the only touchdown for us last week. So, but the Chargers got a ton of talent on that defense. They're playing at home against New Orleans, who have been just struggling offensively, period, and have hardly any wide receivers. So, I like Chargers against New Orleans this week. And then Houston, owned in 39.2% fantasy leagues, has been very good in spot streaming defense starts this year. And now they get the Colts at home. And, Anthony Richardson's back. And that's good news for fantasy defenses because he does not do anything but give up sacks and turn the ball over hardly right now. And he only throws the ball about, 16 to 18 times a game. And not to mention Jonathan Taylor, if he's still out, they ain't got much of a run game. They ain't got nobody to throw the ball. Like, unless they put Joe Flacco back under there, I'm starting a defense up against this Indianapolis Colts offense right now. And Houston's defense ain't no joke either. And they're playing at home. So I like them a lot this week. And that's the stream of defenses I got for you. And then kickers, all top 10 options, except for one, but he's going to be a top 10 option after the buys are done. But number one's Will Lutz for Denver, on 7% fantasy leagues, the number 5 kicker in the NFL. This week, he's playing at home against Carolina. And honestly, we've seen it against the Saints. Sean Payton just believes in Will Lutz. Like, if they're in field goal range, he's giving them a chance. They don't hardly ever go for it on fourth down unless they're close to the goal line. And the way this offense is, short routes and everything, they don't make real big chunk plays. I think Will Lusk gets a fair amount of opportunities this year, and he's probably somebody good for rest of season, honestly. Then you got Will Reichard from Minnesota, my number 2 guy, playing at the Rams this Thursday night. Well, the good thing about Will Reichard from Minnesota, for one, they've been scoring a fair amount of points. He's the number 8 kicker in fantasy, but he's also passed his bye, and he kicks in a dome, and he's been efficient and effective. So that's some keys for kickers that you look for at this point in the season. On an offense that moves the ball well, it will only get better as they get their tight end back. So Will Reichard from Minnesota, only owned in 16% fantasy leagues, number 8 kicker so far. I think he only gets better. Good offense, kicks in a dome, and he's passes by. I mean, I think he's somebody you pick up in any league that you really either have a bye kicker or somebody struggling. And then last but not least, Cameron Dicker for the Chargers, kicking at home, which they essentially play in a dome, but he's owned in 46% fantasy leagues. But this week he's at New Orleans, against New Orleans at home, but he has also passed his bye. And his last 2 weeks after his bye, he has kicked, he's had double-digit fantasy points at least in the last 2 weeks. And it seems like Jim Harbaugh is believing in field goals as well, just like Sean Payton. So, I like Cameron Dicker as well. And that's going to round out this week 8 Waiver Wire episode, guys. We appreciate y'all joining us. Please like, subscribe, download, give us a thumbs up, give us some feedback. Let us know what you like, let us know what you don't like. Please pray for a prayer request, and we'll be coming at you with a start, sit, sleeper later on this week. And y'all keep chasing that trophy.
This ain't how it's supposed to be. It should be just you and me.